Well, at this stop, I'm going to talk a bit about our soybean establishment work. And this particular trial we've been conducting for a number of years. We changed the treatments, so I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing with this trial at the current time, and then we'll refer to your folder for some past information. So one of the main objectives of this trial is to examine the performance of soybean with early planting dates. Well, guess what? We didn't get it in very early this year like most everyone else. Our intent was to plant the last week in April or early May, but as you can see by the signs, we're a little behind that. So we were able to plant on May 29th, and the block from this sign westward, these were planted on that date, and then the eastern half of this trial was planted on June 12th. And then within the trial, we do have a couple of other factors that we're looking at. One is tillage systems, and they're listed here on this sign, simply conventional till and then direct planted into last year's wheat stubble. And then also we continue to look at the impact of starter fertilizer on soybeans. And so we have 3 treatments, simply untreated check, and then one of most interest is broadcast. I say that because if a person requires phosphorus to soybean, our recommendation is to broadcast your phosphorus instead of applying it as a band. We're not sure exactly why, but the soybeans seem to respond better to broadcast. And so we have that as a treatment, and then as a comparison, we have a 2x0 band as a comparison. And by 2x0, we mean that the fertilizer was placed horizontally 2 inches from where the soybeans were planted, or approximately at that distance. And one other treatment we have, if you look on the other side, on the south side, there's a sign indicating a fungicide. We did treat the second rep, the one that's just to the south of you, and then also the last rep, the one closest to the road, with the fungicide that's listed. So we're continuing to add to that database to see the performance of foliar fungicides, to see if they would help enhance yield with beans. By the way, the variety that we're using here has a relative maturity of 0.7. So a bit, we're pushing things a little bit based on the planting dates, but again, you know what the original intent was. And this morning, as I looked at the plants, I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but even though we have a fair difference in planting dates, at this point, there's very little difference in development of the plants in either side of the line. They're both in that R5 to R6 stage. So if you would open up your folder, and in the stapled handout on page 7, is a chart that I've presented a number of meetings and tours in the past. We keep updating it, and I'd like to make a few comments about it and just emphasize that because we do this work to build a database, and so I want to share the 3 of the factors from this trial that will be included in this research summary of soybean plant establishment factors. So on there you'll see various factors, and then we have an A column, which we'd like you to be in, and then the yield advantage by being in the A column versus the B. And then the number of site years of NDSU trials to support the information. And so I put an asterisk by the 3 factors that we have in this trial that we'll be adding to this table. So number 1, tillage systems. You see over 18 site years of data that reduced till has averaged an 8% yield increase compared to conventional. Well, how about this year? I think it'd be a good bet that our reduced till planting should perform better based on the lack of moisture that we've been experiencing. About middled on the chart is planting date. And we're disappointed we didn't plant early, but this will still be useful. We might just have another year where we're planting into June. And it'll be nice to see the response of the beans with a more typical planting date, latter part of May versus well into June. But you see the data we have generated on the planting date, late April, early May, with a limited database, 4 site years of data, we see a real nice response. And so that's kind of a follow-up in the question that was asked of Hans on planting dates. And a lot of it is, yes, we're able to capture more sunlight. The canopy is filling in quicker, in particular if we have narrow rows. And then finally, the last factor that has asterisk is phosphorus at planting time. And I already talked about that. We're trying to build a database so far. We're not seeing substantial differences between broadcast and banded, but we're going to keep plugging away at this, and we will continue to recommend, if you have choices, the first one would be broadcast phosphorus versus banding. And certainly we would discourage a person from placing fertilizer directly with soybean seed.
How about broadcast versus no fertilizer?
Yes, the three treatments are we didn't apply any phosphorus or rebroadcast. We did broadcast at a higher rate. I don't remember offhand what the rate was, but it's according to NDSU's tables on the amount of P to apply. And the soil is actually low on phosphorus, so we hope to get a response. And then we cut back on by 1/3 the rate in the 2x0 band. And as you notice in the sign, we're using a Gavilon liquid product 624-6. It's a complete fertilizer. It has some K and N as well as phosphorus. That's correct. The question was on the direct seeding, are you just laying the phosphorus over the top? And the answer is yes. We planted, and then I came with a hand sprayer and sprayed the 624-6 on top. So this is the third year that we've done that. And in the first year, in 2011, remember that was a very wet year, I think the moisture helped to move some of the phosphorus, not very far, but far enough to help. And we did see a yield increase, at least numerically, with both the no-till or direct seeded and the conventional. Last year we didn't, but last year we were dry, and it may have been where either we didn't get enough rain to move the phosphorus down, or more likely our topsoil was quite dry, and maybe the roots just weren't actively getting the phosphorus. So we'll see what happens this year. But yes, there's no incorporation other than rainfall. The question was, we've had minimal rainfall since, especially with the June 12th planting. Have we lost the phosphorus? No, it's there. And yeah, I'll be real curious to see if we get a response with the broadcast.